Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. August 11th, The Glory. Story 1, Aten and the Light That Reached Everything. Every morning the sun rose above Egypt and performed a miracle so ordinary that it could almost be forgotten. Light spilled across the Nile, warmed the fields, entered palace courtyards and workers' homes, touched animals and plants, and crossed borders without asking who was worthy to receive it. During the reign of the pharaoh Akhenaten in the 14th century BCE, this universal power of sunlight became the center of one of the most extraordinary religious transformations in ancient Egyptian history. The solar deity, Aten, had existed before Akhenaten, but under his rule, Aten was elevated above Egypt's traditional gods and represented not as a human or animal-shaped deity, but primarily as a visible disk of the sun, its rays stretching downward toward the living world. In surviving reliefs, those rays sometimes end in tiny hands. Some reach toward Akhenaten and his queen, Nefertiti. Others hold the Ankh, the Egyptian sign of life, toward their faces. The image is startlingly intimate. Sunlight itself appears to reach down and place life into human breath. At Akhenaten's new capital, Akhet-Aten, now known as Amarna, temples dedicated to Aten were constructed differently from the shadowed sanctuaries associated with many traditional Egyptian cults. Their courts opened upward toward the sky. Worship took place beneath the very sunlight being honored. A famous composition commonly called the Great Hymn to the Aten described that light spreading across the world. When Aten rises, people awaken, wash, dress, lift their arms, animals stir. Birds leave their nests, plants grow, and ships travel the river. Even foreign lands receive the sun's life-giving rays. The hymn imagines creation responding simply because light has returned. Yet there is another side to this remarkable period. Akhenaten's solar revolution was not merely a gentle celebration of universal radiance. Traditional religious institutions were disrupted. Other divine cults were suppressed, and the king placed himself and his family at the center of Aten's worship. After his death, much of his religious program was dismantled, and Egypt returned to its older traditions. That tension makes Aten especially meaningful for today's theme of glory. Radiance itself may reach everywhere, but human beings can still try to possess it. We can confuse being visible with being superior, confidence with control, or shining brightly with requiring everyone else to stand in our shadow. Yet sunlight offers a different lesson. Perhaps confidence can work the same way. There are people who have spent years shrinking themselves because visibility felt dangerous, boastful, or undeserved. But becoming visible does not require taking light away from anyone else. We can create, speak, lead, sing, teach, build, love, and allow our gifts to occupy their rightful space. Aten's rays stretch outward in every direction, ending in open hands. Perhaps radiance begins there, not with demanding that the world look at us, but with finally allowing what is alive within us to reach the world. Story 2, Tonatiuh and the Sun That Had to Move. Before the present world, the Meshika told of other ages that had already risen and fallen. Suns had illuminated earlier creations, and each creation had eventually ended in catastrophe. Then the gods gathered, Hvare-khshaeta, to bring another sun into existence. Two gods prepared themselves for the terrible task. The first was Hvare-khshaeta, wealthy and proud, who brought magnificent offerings. The second was Nana-Watsin, humble, afflicted with sores, and possessing little of outward splendor. Before them burned a tremendous divine fire. To create the new sun, one of them would have to enter it. Hvare-khshaeta approached first, but when the flames struck his face, he hesitated. Again he tried, again he retreated. 4 times he approached the fire and could not make himself leap. Then Nana-Watsin stepped forward. He closed his eyes, gathered his courage, and threw himself directly into the flames. Shamed by what he had witnessed, Hvare-khshaeta followed him. The gods waited. Soon the eastern sky began to glow, and Nana-Watsin emerged transformed into the brilliant sun. Hvare-khshaeta also appeared in the heavens, shining as brightly as the first, but the gods judged that 2 equal suns should not blaze together. One deity struck Hvare-khshaeta's face with a rabbit, dimming his radiance, and he became associated with the moon. Yet the creation was not finished. The new sun shone brilliantly in the sky, but it would not move. Light existed, but dawn could not become day. The gods realized that the sun required their own sacrifice before it could begin its journey. They surrendered themselves, and through divine death, the celestial order was set into motion. In later Meshcha thought, the sun of the present age was identified with Tonatiuh, whose name means roughly, he who goes forth shining. He was not imagined as a gentle ornament hanging above the world. His movement across the heavens belonged to a cosmic struggle that had to be sustained. Each sunrise represented continuation, but never inevitability. The universe demanded energy, reciprocity, and sacrifice. Tonatiuh therefore appears in Meshcha imagery as a formidable solar presence, associated with heat, warfare, and the dangerous power necessary to keep the present world alive. His radiance was glorious precisely because it had a cost. The story offers a striking ancient understanding of visibility. Nana-Watsin does not become radiant because he begins as the most impressive figure in the gathering. Quite the opposite. The god who appears least glorious becomes the one willing to enter the fire. His transformation happens only afterward. Tonatiuh's light carries that same severity. To shine is not simply to be admired. The sun must move. It must fulfill its purpose. Glory in this tradition is not decoration. It is power placed into motion. Story 3. Apollo in the Light of Delphi. High upon the slopes of Mount Parnassus stood Delphi, a place the ancient Greeks came to regard as one of the sacred centers of the world. Before Apollo could become lord of its famous oracle, however, Greek tradition told that he first had to claim the sanctuary. According to the Homeric hymn of Apollo, the young god traveled through Greece searching for a place where humanity might build his temple and seek his guidance. Eventually, he reached the slopes beneath Parnassus and chose the site that would become Delphi. But the land was associated with a monstrous serpent or dragon called Python. Apollo confronted the creature and killed it with arrows, establishing his sanctuary, where generations of worshippers would later travel seeking divine counsel. At Delphi, Apollo's presence was expressed through the Pythia, the priestess who served as his oracle. Kings, generals, colonists, and ordinary petitioners came with questions whose answers might change the direction of their lives. Yet Apollo's revelations were not always simple instructions. Oracular response could be difficult, ambiguous, and dangerous to misunderstand. A famous tradition tells of Croesus, king of Lydia, who consulted Delphi before attacking Persia. He was told that if he crossed the river Halys, he would destroy a great empire. Croesus heard what confidence wanted him to hear. He attacked, and a great empire was indeed destroyed, his own. Apollo's light, then, was not the comforting glow of being told we are always right. His domain included prophecy, music, poetry, healing, archery, and the disciplined pursuit of knowledge. He was associated with clarity and order, but clarity could expose uncomfortable truths. This makes Apollo's radiance far more interesting than simply calling him a sun god. In early Greek religion, Helios was the divine personification of the sun itself. Apollo's strong identification with solar light developed more fully over time, particularly in later Greek and Roman thought. His older brilliance was also intellectual, artistic, prophetic, and purifying. He illuminated through revelation. Even the famous Delphic maxim, "Know thyself," belonged to the sanctuary associated with him. Those two words contain an entire philosophy of radiance. To know ourselves is not merely to catalog our weaknesses. It is also to recognize what we possess. Apollo could wield the bow, command the lyre, heal disease, inspire poetry, and speak prophecy. His many gifts did not diminish one another. Together they formed his divine identity. Perhaps this is why his sanctuary became a place where people traveled to discover what they could not see alone. Light reveals, sometimes what it reveals is danger, sometimes limitation, sometimes possibility, and sometimes the thing hidden in shadow is our own ability. Apollo's glory was never contained in one talent or one ray of light. It emerged through the full expression of what belonged to him. Story 4. Pra-Atit and the Radiance of the Sun. Every morning above Thailand, the darkness gives way to a presence whose name still lives in the Thai language for the sun. Pra-Atit. The figure belongs to a long cultural inheritance shaped by Indian cosmology, Hindu traditions, Buddhism, and centuries of distinctly Thai interpretations. Pra-Atit corresponds to the Sanskrit Aditya and the solar deity Surya. But within Thai tradition, he developed his own recognizable place among the celestial beings known as Tewada. In traditional imagery, Pra-Atit appears radiant, sometimes red in complexion, crowned and adored like celestial royalty, traveling through the heavens in a chariot drawn by powerful horses. His arrival announces more than morning. The world becomes visible beneath him. Roads emerge from darkness, fields brighten, temples catch the first gold of day, and human life begins moving again. One traditional account of Pra-Atit's origin appears within Thai adaptations of Indian celestial mythology. The great god Shiva creates heavenly beings from animals that have been transformed through divine power. For Pra-Atit, 6 lions are reduced to powder, wrapped in red cloth, sprinkled with divine nectar, and transformed into the solar deity. The imagery is striking. The strength of the lion does not disappear when its old form is broken apart. It becomes radiance. Pra-Atit rises from transformation already carrying the color, authority, and heat of the sun. His place in Thai cosmology also became connected with a traditional system of assigning celestial deities to the days of the week. Pra-Atit governs Sunday, and his associated color is red. This relationship between day, planet, deity, and color became woven into Thai cultural traditions that remain recognizable today. Yet Pra-Atit's radiance was not merely ornamental. The sun establishes rhythm, its appearance divides night from day, and gives shape to time itself. Its warmth makes growth possible, while its intensity commands respect. To possess solar brilliance is therefore to possess a presence that cannot easily be ignored. That is what makes the old image of the lions particularly beautiful. A lion already commands attention through its physical presence, but in the creation of Pra-Atit, that earthly strength is transformed into something visible across the entire sky. Nothing about its power has been made smaller. It has simply changed form. The story preserves a vision of glory that is not about decoration or applause. but about becoming unmistakably what one is meant to be. Pra'ati does not chase the darkness across the heavens, demanding that it acknowledges him. He rises, and his presence is enough. Day begins because the light has arrived. Daily thread for August 11th. Where do I shine? There is a difference between wanting attention and allowing ourselves to be seen. One asks the world to confirm our worth. The other begins when we finally stop hiding what was already there. Across today's stories, sunlight became more than something blazing overhead. It became a language of radiance, for the strange and sometimes difficult experience of occupying our own space without apology. Aten's rays stretched outward across the living world, illuminating fields, animals, rivers, nations, and human lives. Light reached beyond boundaries. It did not become smaller because there was more world to touch. Tonatia carried another kind of radiance. The fifth sun could not simply exist brilliantly in the heavens. It had to move. Its fire became meaningful through action, reminding us that gifts left permanently hidden cannot fulfill the purpose for which they exist. At Delphi, Apollo's brilliance illuminated what could not easily be seen. His realm of prophecy, music, healing, poetry, and knowledge reminds us that radiance is not always physical beauty or commanding presence. Sometimes we shine through the things we understand deeply, the art we create, the truth we speak, the skill we have cultivated, or the way we help another person finally see clearly. And in Thailand, Pra'ati rises from a remarkable transformation, the strength of lions becoming the brilliance of the sun. His presence does not need to argue with the darkness. He appears, and morning announces him. 4 traditions, then, offer 4 different ways of understanding visibility: reach, movement, revelation, and presence. Perhaps confidence is built from all 4. First, we allow ourselves to reach beyond the small places where we have learned to remain contained. Then we move, actually using what we possess rather than endlessly preparing to use it someday. We learn what belongs uniquely to us, including talents we may have dismissed because they came naturally. And finally, perhaps the hardest part, we allow ourselves simply to be present without shrinking. Many of us learn invisibility long before we consciously choose it. We soften our opinions. We dismiss compliments. We introduce our accomplishments with apologies. We wait until someone else gives us permission to call ourselves a writer, artist, leader, healer, teacher, creator, or whatever name we secretly hope we have earned. We imagine confidence arrives after enough proof has accumulated. But confidence may work in the opposite direction. Sometimes we become visible first. We speak before our voices stop trembling. We share the work before we know how it will be received. We accept the compliment instead of immediately explaining why it is not entirely deserved. We stand beneath our own light long enough to become accustomed to its warmth. Confidence heals invisibility because confidence says, I am allowed to take up the space my life actually requires. That does not mean becoming the sun around which everyone else must orbit. Radiance is not domination. Another person's brilliance does not extinguish ours, and ours does not diminish theirs. A sky can hold countless lights. So today, ask yourself the question at the center of August 11th. Where do I shine? Not where could you shine after becoming better, prettier, wealthier, wiser, more accomplished, or more certain. Where do you shine now? Name it. Say one sincere compliment about yourself aloud. Let your own ears hear your own voice acknowledging something good that belongs to you. Because perhaps glory is not becoming something worthy. Because perhaps glory is not becoming someone worthy of being seen. Perhaps it begins when we stop turning away from the person who is already standing in the light. Today, do not ask whether you deserve to shine. Ask where you already do, and have the courage to look directly at it.